I'm Chris.
I'm Sandy.
And this is Parenting Autism. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 87. We got Sandy Coulter right here and Chris Coulter, your hosts of Parenting Autism.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Anybody there? Hello?
Oh, my goodness. Well, another month has gone by, and here we are. But we have a pretty good excuse as to why it took a month this time, and that would be round 2 of COVID. Hit the Coulter house. Boom, 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 boom. So the last podcast episode we did was in mid-June, and it was right before my birthday weekend. We had some special plans. It was great. You and I got to have a night alone, which is a rare treat. Maybe happens once a year. Bryce, seriously, Bryce stayed at Mama and Papa's house, and we were able to have a night alone. We had spa treatments. Everything was wonderful. We had great weekend, great Father's Day. And then on Monday, after Father's Day, you sent me a text to work asking me if I was coughing a lot. No. And then you had the symptoms first. And then Bryce and I were playing hide and seek in the house, trying not to get what we thought was the flu because you took the test for COVID. It came back negative. Okay, he must have the flu because on Tuesday you sent me a picture of the thermometer to work showing me that you had 102 fever. So then we really quarantined you and said, we don't want the flu. But on Wednesday evening, Bryce came into me and came into the office where I was, crawled in my lap and said, Mommy, can you make me all better? And I knew, oh no. And sure enough, he got the fever. It started with him. He kisses all over me. So I knew at that point, it's a matter of time. I was racing the clock. So
It's just inevitable.
It's inevitable. It's going to go through the house. We did our best, but at least it's staggered out this time because when we had it last year, you and I got symptoms on the same day. And it really didn't affect Bryce. I mean, he had a 100 something fever and it went away like the last strand. This one got Bryce. He had fever for a couple days. He handled it so well. I mean, he really did. He would just say to us, I'm so cold. I'm so cold. So we knew he had the chills from the fever. So we had his little hoodie, sweatshirt hoodie on him and the blankets, but he handled it really well. His face broke out with a viral rash, and that was a first. I've never seen that before, and it's not very pretty, but apparently that's common. And then once his fever and COVID left him, his complexion cleared up again. And then, there were a couple days there that were rough. That are kind of a blur for me, but at least it was only a couple days this time. And then just kind of the lingering cough and then the lingering fatigue, which is why we didn't feel like doing a podcast because we didn't have energy and we were still coughing a bit. But we're cleared now. Ta-da!
You said just a few days. Was that all you had it for?
2 days that I really can't remember that were a blur.
Oh, my
That the fever was bad. You had 2 days that you were really bad.
I was down for 10 days.
Not literally down. I was sick for longer.
Yeah.
But you were down. Like you didn't come out to even surface for 2 days.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we gradually, slowly recovered.
Yeah.
But a couple of those days were super hard. Yeah.
It's not like we had it, we're down for 2 days, and then we're all better.
No.
So, anyway, enough about that.
Enough of that. We're all better there. That's probably like one big headline. But really, I think the other stuff has just been life going on and trying to...
I know you got a list over there.
I do
Don't
have
try
a
to
list.
sugarcoat stuff. Come on
Well,
now.
we have a topic today.
We really don't have much going on.
Sometimes I try to not just hit the topic itself, which today is going to be about friendships. I was trying to just kind of, catch people up like what's going on in our world. Let me say this. So here's a headline off the press from this past Sunday. Bryce was slept in his room, and our bedroom is on the other side of the house. But I can look out the door and see the kitchen area, which is where Bryce was hanging out on Sunday morning. I heard his game, and I look out the door while I'm still laying in bed, and he's completely dressed. I mean, his shoes included, and they're not Velcro. They're his church shoes that tie. I don't think he tied his shoes, but those are tough for me to get on him. And somehow he did it because he knew he had a new game that he got last week as a gift from Grandma Roro. And he wanted to get up and play his game, and he knows he's not allowed to play his games until he's fully dressed.
Yep.
So we were shocked. We were pleasantly surprised. We still haven't figured out how he got his shoes on. And he had a button shirt. I mean, the whole thing was very impressive.
It was amazing.
Because he knows there's certain clothes I have for him for church. So he picked out what he had wore the last Sunday, knowing that's what he wears to church, and got himself dressed. And we got there on time. So that was great.
In other news, 4th of July, Bryce said that he wanted to light off some fireworks. So we sometimes his yes isn't always his yes, and his no isn't always his no. So we really, asked him 150 times, and he had more yeses than no's. So, so we went to Walmart. We got the cheapest package.
Yep.
It was like $12. And at first, he was scared. He had his headphones on. And then when he realized that the stuff that we had was not the big stuff, then he even wanted to help me light the fuse. So that was a big step for him and his anxiety. And he was able to watch other fireworks going on in the neighborhood and not get scared. And I think he did really well with that.
He did do really well. He did take his headphones off temporarily, and then there was a really loud one in our neighborhood because he goes, "Why do I need these?" And then it went boom, and I'm like, and that would be why.
Yeah.
So then he quickly put them back on, but he really wasn't scared, and he definitely didn't have any meltdowns or anything.
So
And
one of our
worked out
neighbors,
well.
I guess, had the ones that just do the big boom. And it shook the ground every time they did it.
Yeah,
and
it was a loud one.
like every 10 minutes. I'm like, what's the point of the ones that just go boom? I mean, I would rather see something pretty in the sky.
Me too.
Than just a flash of light and a boom.
Me too. But we did
that's
have
just me.
people. I think there was a house behind us that they must have spent a lot of money on their light show. And as I was watching them going, oh, there's $100. Oh, there's $100.
Yeah, right.
But we got to enjoy their pretty show. And Bryce got to have his first really hands-on experience. And he's getting more brave in some areas.
We did let him sleep in our room for those couple of nights that the fireworks were going off because I didn't want him to get totally scared in his room by himself and then be afraid to go back there after July 4th, so
yeah, that was a good call. And it worked out really well. And he thought that was a special treat. And he's back in his room. So, but he is getting more independent on things, and he's really proud of himself when he remembers to do things without me telling him. And I think one night he got out of the bathtub and he remembered to put he knows to put his dirty clothes in the hamper, get his jammies on, and I want him to brush his teeth at night. And I really want him to do that without me telling him. I want it to become habit. And so I didn't remind him, and he did it. And I made a huge, huge ordeal out of that. So now it's like, Mommy, don't tell me anything. Okay, I won't. And then I'll just say, oh, let me see your smile. And then he'll know if he brushed them or not. And then I'm not reminding him by saying the words, but it helps him, remember. But he's really, really doing a great job with that. He's doing better about remembering to put his shoes away. But I can see that it makes him happy, that he knows it makes me happy. And that's Bryce is a pleaser. So he's going to want to do things like that. But if we can just get him to continue to do those things, even if it's to please us, it will soon become the habit, and it'll happen second nature. And he's taking care of himself in ways that is going to help him as he transitions into becoming a teenager and then eventually an adult.
In other news, we've been working on spelling words recently. Bryce has always had an aversion to writing. So a lot of times we'll use the whiteboard in school because that's easier and less stressful for him. And I don't think we really know, even now, what bothers him about using a writing utensil. I suppose I could ask him now and he might be able to tell me. But in any case, come to find out, like, he really has trouble spelling words. And I don't know if it's because we do less writing than typical kids in school because he has that aversion to it.
But he does typing.
He does typing.
Which is spelling.
Right. But the words are there on the screen for him to type. So it's like, I don't know if there's a disconnect between one side of his brain and the other, because, you know, you have the visual of the word,
right,
and then you sound it out, and then you spell it. And he is just having a big trouble with that. So one of our listeners turned me on to this program called Brain Balance. And I had researched it a long time ago, and I saw that they had good reviews, but I just, at that time, I just couldn't follow through with,
right,
you know, it just came across it haphazardly or whatever in passing. So I picked up the book, and the library had the nutritional side of Brain Balance, where they want you to do, you know, more vegetables, more organic foods, that type of thing. So they have recipes in the book, which we're going to try. But I just got the main book, which was published maybe back in 2015 or 2016. And it's about the program that they do that helps kids with autism, ADHD, Asperger's, and I think Tourette's was in there too. But apparently they've had a lot of successes. They have a lot of 5-star Google reviews. Come to find out that the program, I believe, starts at like $10,000 for 6 weeks. Yeah, for 6 weeks. So,
oh my, I didn't know that.
The good news is
we have $10,000. Oh wait, no.
No. The good news is that he goes over a lot of the program in the book.
That is good
and I'm
news.
just starting the book, so I can't speak to what they're doing. But he starts out by saying that kids with autism usually have a deficit on one side of the brain. So it's difficult for the one side of the brain to communicate with the other side of the brain and work together, because one side of the brain is behind and the other side of the brain is either at level or ahead, because a lot of parents say, oh, he's so good at math, let's concentrate on what his strengths are and let's concentrate on that math. And according to him, what ends up happening is the stronger side of the brain gets even stronger, and then the weaker side of the brain gets weaker. So the idea is to find where the deficits are by doing their little screening thing that I haven't gotten to yet, and then do exercises and other types of brain stimulation for the side of the brain that is weaker. And if you get that side up to where the other side is, then everything starts to work together and things start to happen. That's
the brain balance. You want to get both sides balanced.
Yeah, basically.
Well, I do know that when I pick him up from OT, that one of the things in occupational therapy that they work on is him crossing the midline, because I believe that's part of trying to get balance in the brain as well. And I know that drumming, I believe, is very helpful with that. But he also just started piano lessons. And I hadn't thought about it from an autism perspective, So in our house, I'm the piano player, and I took lessons when I was young, probably Bryce's age, 8, 9 years old and up. I always had an interest in it. I can remember taking the lessons, and I then got impatient, and I wanted to just be able to play music and play the songs that I liked. If I heard it, I wanted to be able to play it, and that's when I kind of tossed aside reading the music and learned to play by chords, or say play by ear. But with Bryce, the way they're teaching him is different than how I learned the basics. And what I've noticed with it is he is, and this is good, he's using both hands at the same time, the left and the right. And I will tell you that because I am dominantly right-handed, I can play the right hand notes fine. It was that left hand that always was a struggle for me. And that was the frustrating part for me when I was younger. And then I learned, oh, you can just play the chord with your left hand and play the notes with your right hand, and it still sounds great, you know, but I can never be a classical piano player.
Right.
But for Bryce, I want to keep encouraging him to do this because I know that this is forcing him to use the left and the right side
Plus
at the same
musical
time.
Side of his brain.
Oh, it's great in many ways. So, I mean, he likes all kinds of instruments, and he's the one that kept asking for piano lessons. So I had showed him some stuff, but again, they're showing him in ways that I didn't. I would have started with the white keys, you know, and teaching him the main notes, but they've started him on the black keys. So it's great. I definitely trust whatever their process is.
He's doing it.
And he seems to be excited, and he's even doing his daily practices. And again, from an autism perspective, I think this is really good for him. And I'm happy about that.
Yeah. I'll let everybody know what I find out in the rest of that book and go from there.
Yeah, I figured that's something we'll discuss as we go along.
Plus, we have a new autism doctor that we're going to see here at the end of the month. So we're excited about that and looking forward to seeing if she has any additional insight as the first doctor. And see.
Are you going to mention the brain balancing to her? Just to get her take on it?
She might already be on it. But another thing they mentioned in the book so far is proprioception. So if you Google autism and proprioception, you'll learn about that, and also primitive reflexes. So those are some of the movements that they do as a baby, and if they don't do those movements correctly, like if they don't crawl correctly when they're infants, then they don't extinguish the primitive reflex, I should say. So it kind of goes in steps. You know, they have these reflexes when you're a baby, and you kind of have to do them in order for your brain to advance. And so if your brain got stuck on a level, it's going to affect them in a certain area today, you know. So
Bryce was not a perfect crawler.
He was not.
Do you remember he would be one knee down, one knee up?
Yes. So I will be looking at that.
Okay. Yeah. So possibly he might need to start crawling again? Seriously?
No, but I think, some people believe that you're supposed to go back to that and do that many times in order to extinguish that. But I believe there's other exercises. Again, I'm not very far into the book, but I think there's other exercises that you can do that will fulfill that.
Okay.
But I'm not positive. So
gotcha.
More to come.
More to come. Yeah, I do know that he was a crazy kind of crawler. Your new ASD curriculum. We're going to talk about that.
With the whole spelling thing, I asked around in the forums that I'm in, and somebody brought up ASDreading.com. And again, Bryce really enjoys video type of learning, and of course, instead of writing or bookwork. And so this program, it's online, exclusively online. And they take you through, each lesson has one word that you work on. So start out and they say the word, and then you have to type it. So you need some typing skills, or at least, know how to push the buttons on the keyboard. And so they have the word on the screen, and you spell it while it's on the screen. And then next time the word's not on the screen and they want you to spell it. And if you don't get it, then they flash it real quick so you can see it. And then if you still don't get it, then they put it on the screen for you to copy.
Okay.
And then as you progress, you're using that word in a sentence. And also they'll put up several words on the screen with only certain letters in the word. So let's say the word is what. They'll have 4 words on there on the screen, and let's say it's blank H blank T. And then the next word is blank blank SR or SE. And then, so they say which word would spell what. So you have to look at the blanks and the letters that are there and figure out where what would plug in.
That's interesting.
So you pick that, and then when you pick it, then you fill in the blanks with the letters. And so it's really good for him. He seems like he's picking up on the word, so I'll ask him days later how to spell that word, and he knows how to spell it. So it's working for him. And I've also asked his speech and language person to work with him on spelling. And she's doing that. I think she said she was using Scrabble letter tiles.
Oh, that's fun.
So if we hit them at both sides with that, I think we'll move forward with that.
Yeah. So I was going to share this quote that I saw in the Time for Learning newsletter, had to do with education. And she said, actually, it's addressed to you. Oh. Hi, Chris. Childhood is not a race to see how quickly a child can read, write, and count. It is a small window of time to learn and develop at the pace that is right for each individual child. Earlier does not equal better. And I circled that because we've discussed that multiple times with Bryce. And again, on this podcast, we can't talk about other children because we don't have other children and we don't know their circumstances. But with Bryce, we know that we have to work at his pace. Mm-hmm. And we've got him on a 3rd grade curriculum.
Did we talk about his pace earlier in a different podcast?
I think we were just saying that 3rd grade was a bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
Especially in May. And then in June, you said it was starting to get a little better. Mm-hmm. I think since you got this ASD program for him, he's happier about it because he'll tell me about it even when I pick him up from therapy. So he's very receptive to it. I feel like that's getting better, but you have slowed down your pace. And you said that your anxiety has decreased because you've accepted that.
Yeah,
that's
I've accepted
okay.
that. Once I figured out that slowing down is more important than pushing through.
Yes.
And then we received that email from Time for Learning.
Yeah, it was like affirmation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, we've slowed down. His anxiety is less because my anxiety is less.
Yep.
And he'll say, well, Daddy, this is hard. This is really hard. I said, well, not everything's going to be easy. And when things are hard, we just slow down. We just slow down and take it one thing at a time. And he's good with that.
He is. And then sometimes when things aren't easy, then you can help him. Like we talked about with the fairy tales and the other
genies and what was the other witches and warlocks.
Stuff we really don't care about, and things that Bryce isn't going to need in his future.
Yeah, part of his curriculum.
Nudge him along with that stuff and help him and just get him past that.
I mean, this particular part of the curriculum assumes that he's already seen the movie Cinderella, that he already knows Charlotte's Web.
You did ask me that. Is that discrimination that should he know about Cinderella?
I didn't say discrimination. No. I'm like,
you're right. You didn't use that word.
Should a kid his age
I said it was discrimination.
Have seen Cinderella already? I don't know. You have your nieces and nephews, and you would know.
But I would say most of my nieces, and that's why I said, most of my nieces, I'd probably say, yeah, they know who Cinderella, but the nephews would know more who the other superheroes were.
Right, right. So we're going through this. It's kind of like extra curriculum that they have. It's called Language Arts Extension. So it's an extension of language arts, but it's going through, okay, well, you have to read this book first. And one of them was Charlotte's Web, and that book is I don't know how many pages long, and Bryce would never read that. So we rented the movie, and it turns out we got a quarter or halfway
maybe
through the
half,
movie.
and that was a push.
And it was all we could do to keep him interested. And, they're talking about killing a pig in the movie. And, it's...
And he's like, what is that? What do they mean? What do they mean? And Bryce gets upset if an insect is killed.
Or a plant. If you take a leaf off a plant.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, well, he's over it. He doesn't want to go any further with it. And it doesn't have a great theme. So... okay, let's just stop. Maybe we'll switch over to Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory, because that's another one that he's, in air quotes, supposed to already know.
Right.
So,
well, that's one of the goals for him, is that we would start watching a movie like once a week as a family.
Yeah.
And just kind of choosing some out. And we had found one, and Bryce will prefer to go to what he knows, for sure. First. Oh, no, let's watch this one. Nope, we got to try something new.
Right.
So we did try WALL-E, which is WALL-E by Disney. And
he liked it.
He did like that one. It took him, it's got a little bit of a slow start. But once he got in, man, now he wants to watch that one all the time. So we're like, no, we have to go to another one. I think with Charlotte's Web, you're right. We had to keep kind of averting the topic of what's going to happen to the pig. Mm-hmm. I didn't even remember that's really,
I didn't either.
I didn't remember that's what it was ultimately about.
They started talking about the character's name, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that now.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I remember that now.
But then they're talking about, slaughtering the poor pig and showing all the bacon and all that. And it's like, all right, there's some conversations that we're ready to have with Bryce and some that we're not.
Yeah.
And is he familiar with we don't avoid it altogether. He is familiar with the concept of death because we've lost some people in death that we know and that he's very close to. So my grandmother passed away and Meemaw Alice passed away. And, but he gets it, but he doesn't quite get it. So I am going to share this because what he said yesterday. So we were visiting someone yesterday that we were going to be going out with, and she's older, and to put it in perspective, she just turned 85 and her health is failing. And Bryce had asked me something because she's not going to be driving anymore. So Bryce had the questions, why isn't she driving? And I said, well, sometimes when you get older, you don't drive anymore.
And usually when we go to see her, her door's unlocked. So we knock and we walk in and say, hey, we're here, because she's expecting us.
Right.
So this time the doors were locked. We knocked, no answer.
We went to the front, her side door. It was locked. So we're walking back and we're still in the garage at that door waiting for her. And then Bryce just says, maybe she's already dead. And then you're like, Bryce, don't say that. That's not nice. So then Bryce just like, well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So, well, of course, you didn't want her to hear that. I know. Right. And she didn't. But then we go in the house and Bryce is like, oh no, I did something bad. I'm like, no, it's okay. It's not okay, Mommy. It's not okay.
Meanwhile, I'm having a conversation
with her
while you are trying to sort out.
And I was trying not to repeat that word. I was trying to let that word not come into the air while we were in the house. So I said, it's okay, Bryce. No, it's not okay, Mommy. Daddy said that I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said. I said, nope. So I cut him off.
He was upset with himself. And then I motioned to him because I don't know what other word it was the other day, but I told him I made the motion to go to his brain and pluck it out with his fingers and throw it away. And he got the visual. Right. I just turned to him and I said, Bryce. And I did the motion.
Right.
And
so he's like, I can't throw it, Mommy. I can't. I shouldn't have said that. I'm like, okay. You know how Miss Page is his ABA therapist. I said, do you know how Miss Page is teaching you there are things that you should say, and then there's things that you just think, but you don't say them because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings. Yes, I said, okay, so if you think somebody's dead, I didn't say that word there. I'm like, what you said, that's something that you should just think in your head, but you don't say it out loud because that's not really nice and you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. Does that make sense? Okay. I said, but you're not in trouble. You're really not.
Yeah.
It's okay. We worked through it. He didn't say anything else.
That was it.
But yes, we have to. So as you can see, the topic of death is a little delicate. So if we can avoid it by not finishing a movie, we will.
Yeah.
And we'll address it again at another time when we feel like he can emotionally deal with something like that
Speaking of the movie, there's a scene where the geese or the ducks or whatever they are, they lay eggs and there's chicks. So that hatch, So the other day we're in the truck driving somewhere and he goes, Daddy, how do they... Oh, he said, why didn't that one egg hatch?
Because there was one that didn't.
I said, well, that was a bad egg. God didn't want that one to hatch, so it didn't hatch. It was a bad one. And then he says, well, how do you know... So all the eggs that you eat, Daddy, are bad? Because they don't have chicks in them, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh boy. I said, those eggs were not made to be chickens. They don't have chickens in them. And well, how do you know they don't have chickens in them, Daddy? Well, I said they put them under a bright light and they can see that there's no chickens in there so that they can package them for people to eat.
Oh, that's a good answer.
I understand. And I think they do that. They somehow examine the eggs.
If they don't, they should. No, that was good.
So, in any case,
we got through that.
Yep.
That's so funny. Speaking of eggs and groceries, I don't know if I shared this before, but even if I did, and it's a first-time listener, it's funny enough to share again. So at Aldi's, they have this sign because they have the Aldi special buys.
Here today, gone tomorrow.
Here today, gone tomorrow. So we're in line, and Bryce says, Mommy, is Aldi's closing? I said, no, they're not closing now, because he's been paranoid before that we're going to get locked in a store, which we've discussed in the past.
Yeah.
So I said, no, they're not closing. It's the middle of the afternoon. They won't close till tonight. He goes, no, but are they going to be here tomorrow? I said, well, I think they're here tomorrow. Yeah, they'll be here tomorrow. He goes, well, that sign there says here today, gone tomorrow. That was great.
That's a good
so I'm
one.
like, well, that's not the store. They just mean that maybe some of the things won't be there and they want people to buy them. But yes, we had to do a lot of literal explanations like that.
That's funny.
It was good. All right, you ready to talk about friendships?
No, let's talk about the ads first. Let me just throw that in there.
Get
our podcast, you may experience a commercial or an ad that they're throwing into our podcast randomly. So that just helps us pay for the production costs of the podcast. And if there's anything left over, we can put it toward Bryce's expenses. So if you hear a commercial, just please bear with it and enjoy the commercial. It might turn you on to a new podcast that you like.
Well, and we get to choose which ones they're sharing, right? They give us some options.
Yes, but
so we try to
filter
choose something that
which ones you hear
might interest you.
Yeah. So, but
I really don't even know how it sounds.
There's one about Bigfoot that I chose to put in there. I thought that was funny.
That's because Chris thought he saw Bigfoot when we went to Colorado.
That's a long story.
But that's the truth.
So anyway, but anyway, you might hear a commercial. That's all.
So yeah, one day if you want to hear the Bigfoot story, just let us know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had a listener write in.
Yes.
Because we're encouraging questions, which is great. And she said, would love it if you guys would speak on friendships/relationships, how you go about helping Bryce make friends. I ask this because it's something I find really hard navigating with my son. He's level 2 autism and he's almost 4 years old.
Well, I can start out by saying that prior to now, we had a photography business, family photography. And we had a lot of couples that we photographed their engagements and,
baby pictures,
family
pictures.
And so we were blessed to have a large client base that had kids.
Yeah.
And a lot of clients we were still either actively photographing or we kept in touch with them for one reason or another, And,
we became friends with a lot of our Autographs family.
And then Bryce came along and then everything else happened. And so we kind of had some great friendships who had kids, and that was a perfect setting for us to hook Bryce up with some friends of ours that had kids.
That is one way. I wanted to just kind of go through the history of friendships that we've had with Bryce and our approach to it, because she's writing this when he's almost 4 and level 2. So Bryce is also level 2, and I'm thinking back to before
Preschool.
he turned 4. Well, that would have been a year before.
Oh,
okay. So he wasn't even ready to know what a friend was,
right,
at all.
Right.
You would think that he would, but when we had him in environments around the friends that you just mentioned, like we tried to take him to a couple of birthday parties, or I would try to take him and meet up at the park, he was oblivious to them even being there. He really was. He was in his own land. He would go and play, and then they would kind of do their thing. And we tried that exposure. We tried at church, but, it was more the parallel play that they talk about. He really wasn't interacting. He didn't have any interest. Listen, he hardly interacted with us, and he didn't interact with family. So we kind of took the pressure off of ourselves of friendships for him, knowing that would come later. Let's focus on trying to help him with his comprehension, try to help him with his language, because if we could do that, then he would have more awareness, and then we would have a chance to build those friendships. So it's just kind of like that delay.
We also had his ABA working on play skills. So like when he was ready for friends, that he would have some skills to play with other kids. So, kicking a soccer ball or playing catch or, games that kids play, we would try to introduce those types of things.
We would. I actually purchased a book that I had heard about on some podcast I was listening to, and the author had written how to help kids understand the basics of like 10 core games, right? And one of them was tag. And I thought if Bryce could get the basic idea of tag, and at that time he liked run tickle. I think we've even talked about that a long time ago. But that was his version of tag. Of course, if he said it to someone who didn't know what run tickle was, they didn't know what that meant, but it just meant, chase me until you can tag me and tickle me, basically. But we would explain it to the friends that we knew. But we wanted to try to get him to a point that if he went to a playground and another kid that he doesn't know comes up and says, "Hey, you want to play tag?" that he could at least have a basic idea on that. Red light, green light. That was another one that we worked with him. Hide and seek. He's still terrible at hiding and seek, which we've mentioned. I mean, he'll let you hide forever because he gets distracted. Yeah. But trying to teach those basics. So I didn't even go there until he was probably 5 or 6 years old, maybe 6 or 7 even. Because what is he, 8, about to turn 9? So I'm going to say definitely more in that 5 to 6 year old range.
Yeah.
So Bryce has a later birthday that falls in October. So for VPK, which is what they call it in Florida, that's when you start school at age 4, right? It's like your year before kindergarten. And that is when I felt like, okay, we've got to give him a chance for social. We got to give him an opportunity for social. It was preached to us by our ABA team, social.
There was a lot of parallel play and a lot of he was like distracting the teacher.
Well, and we would take him bowling when he was 3, 4 years old, and we went with the special needs group. And so we were all trying to get each of them to say, your turn, your turn, Bryce. And they would take them over and tap them on the shoulder, and just to give him the concept of interacting. I mean, the adults were making it happen, but we went every Wednesday and we tried, and we were with our little community and they were all trying to that. So we made those kind of attempts, and it was in a safe place where every parent was in the same boat. So you didn't feel like you had to apologize. It didn't feel awkward. It was almost comical sometimes, we're like, oh, we're trying. But, we gave those efforts. But then we really wanted to give him a shot. So we even took him out of his private therapies so that he would have more time to go to school. And so he would go to to the public school with the ESE in the morning. So that's the special needs class. He didn't really make any friends there, I would say. He was familiar with them, but he didn't click to where he would do things with them outside of school. But at the, I would say public school, but at the regular school, it was a private Christian school that we put him in, that he went in the afternoon. He was really drawn to two little boys in his class, and he would come home and talk about them. And the first one was Gian, and he talked about Gian a lot. And we're like, oh, we have a friend. I think we really have a friend. We were so excited.
This was when he was in the stage where he wanted to hug and kiss his friends.
Well, that would have been Michael. Yeah. So with Gian, I think, and when he first started school there, he still had ABA because it was right before he turned 5 and we lost in services because of insurance. So he had Miss Rhonda there so that she could observe. And then she would go out on the playground and try to get him to interact. And for the first several weeks, he didn't want to be near the other kids. It was not natural to him. He would rather just be by himself. But they gradually worked with him. His teacher there, shout out to Miss Amanda, her son was a year older than Bryce. He was also on the spectrum. So she was very familiar with how to work with Bryce. And so she would also encourage him to come over and interact. And then I went on the field trip, and that's when I met Michael's mom. And then I got to know her, and then he was talking about Michael, and him and Michael really clicked. And you've probably heard us mention Michael on this podcast because here we are 4 years later. It's almost coming up on 5, and
they're still friends.
They are very good friends.
Yeah.
Like that's probably his best friend. I would say he would say Michael, although he would say Auntie Sue because they're best friends on Animal Crossing. Yeah. But Michael is a really, really great friend for him. And Michael is now 8 and almost turning 9. He'll be 9 in December. So he's 8.5. So he is now understanding that Bryce has autism. That's a little bit different, but he really doesn't treat him differently, and he's doing really great with him. So, that makes our hearts very warm. But again, it's just finding that one friend. But believe me, if I see that there's a possibility out of friendship, as his mom, I'm going to do my best to nurture that friendship, with our schedule and what we can do. But it doesn't just come naturally for Bryce. But I want to encourage this listener specifically, and then all the listeners, especially if your children are younger, it may be a little while before they really can even understand or feel a connection to a friend. But Bryce has felt some now. And there's people that, and then you and I, we kind of made the mistake, and I think it was a mistake, a learning opportunity. We put him in Cub Scouts because we wanted to give him social opportunity. But we kept saying, we're going to see your friends. We're going to see your friends. And we told him that they were his friends, right? They really weren't his friends because they didn't know him and he didn't know them. And then when a few of them did some stuff that wasn't so nice to him, he was very confused and said, why would my friends try to do that to me? So that was a lesson for us to learn. Let's not just label people friends because they're his age or in that age group, or because we want to force a friendship. Go ahead.
I think that he's got several friends now that they're a phone call away. It's just having time in our schedule to get them all together. But on that note about, how do you get friends and all that? And like what you said, it was really early for us to try to introduce them to friends at the bowling alley and pre-K or VPK, whatever you want to call it. And I believe that the brain has to be at a certain point too before they recognize what a friend is. So when you're talking about that, I think the brain has to develop to a point, and it has to understand people who become friends and people that you see often who are your friends, and I don't think Bryce had that back in VPK. His brain, we weren't getting the eye contact then, and so
he did get the concept with Gian and Michael.
Yeah, that's when
he really
first
did.
Started,
that was the first.
But even then, it was more.
Listen, it didn't take off by wildfire.
Exactly. I'm just saying that they have to reach a certain point before that can really happen.
That is what I'm saying.
So you don't want to force it. If it doesn't feel like it's working, just give them time.
You give them time, and that's what I'm saying. For Bryce, it took time. We just create opportunities.
That's it.
Here's an example of the progression of time, right? Because one reason why we do this podcast and share our experiences is to give, especially to give hope to people who are newer onto this journey, and they're saying, wow, because listen, when you hear your child has autism and then you start reading things and then you start hearing things, it can put a lot of fears into you about, and especially because autism is known for being antisocial. Bryce has always wanted to have friends. He just doesn't, and he still doesn't always know how to interact with friends. We're still working on introductions and how to say bye and not just to hang up on people and, things like that. But he's friendly. He's very friendly. But what I was going to say was, I don't know. I started going and then I lost my train of thought there. But I guess I have to look at a note. But Bryce, we create opportunities. I know what I was going to share about the Salcedo boys. Okay, so we're talking about our photography customers. So we had these baby making machines, Nicole and Raphael, and they had like 3 boys, boom, 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 right? Year after year after year. So seriously, their boys just turned 8, 9, and 10. And Bryce is 8 and about to be 9. So he's like right in the middle between number 2 and 3. So when they were younger, they had invited us to a birthday party that they had for the boys. And it was actually just us and them and the boys. Mm-hmm. But Bryce still just wasn't clued in at all. I think he was probably 3. So they were turning 3, 4, and 5. That's okay. I had gone to the park with them a few times. We had gone to a Halloween thing last summer. We went to Defy and did the trampoline place. And, and we've had them over here a couple of times, but I had never taken him to their house. Because that's another thing is...
out of your environment.
Yeah, so we try to control the environment as much as we can. But Nicole was describing what all she has there for her sons. And I'm like, well, I think he would do really well. And we had talked about taking the boys to the pool, which I'm glad we didn't plan that because it was a rainy day. But I thought, no, we'll play inside. And I knew that they have a Switch. Bryce is all about the Switch. And it's finding that common ground. And they also have... PlayStation, and they have tons of toys. I mean, it was like being at a toy store. So when we got there, they all 3 greeted us at the door like, Bryce, hi, Bryce. And they're loud, sweet, friendly boys. But, 3 voices, Bryce can be like, whoa. He handled it so well this past Saturday. Like, I could see the growth from the prior time that we were all together. Mm-hmm. Because I have seen him before shut down because it was just too much for him. Like, whoa, this is way too much for me.
He's handling things a lot better.
So much better. But again, we're at 8, almost 9. So this has taken a long time to get here, but we're getting there. And so we came in, and of course, he just had his new game that he had gotten 2 days earlier. He really wanted them to play that. But of course, they had their ideas of what they wanted to show him because it was their house. And so they already had one game queued up. So when Bryce is like, well, I want to play Mario Party Superstars. And I said, well, let's see what Jaden has for you first. And then can we do Bryce's game next? Yeah, okay. So he was good. So we did whatever they had set up. And then we did the Mario Party Superstars. One of the boys says, I'll play with you. And Bryce was so happy that he did that. So then the other 2 started setting something up for the next one. Well, they had laser tag. So they had the laser, and Bryce has never played that before. So I would just tell them, Bryce has never played this before. So you just have to kind of explain the rules. But he loved that, and he played so well with them. And then... they did some racing game, and then they did something else. And I mean, we were there for 3 hours, and I think they could have all kept going, but I was like, okay, we all got to go to dinner, and their dad came home, and yeah, we're good. But just seeing how well he did, and again, he didn't get overwhelmed. He was able to go into their environment.
They didn't want Bryce to leave.
No. And yeah, I know Nico's like, I don't want Bryce to leave because he had more things he wanted to play. So we're like, well, definitely come back, and we will. And it's great that I know we can do that, and have different friends for him. I had another friend, and I would take him over to her house on Wednesday nights because I had Bible study. Well, she has 2 girls and a little boy, and the little boy would always be in bed, so I'd leave Bryce with the 2 girls. Well, they're a very girly girl, so they like playing puzzles. They like doing arts and crafts. They like dressing up. They like doing things that Bryce just isn't into as much. And so then they thought that he wasn't interested. They thought he was tired. So every time I would go in and go get him, they would be in bed and they said, no, he was tired and he was wanting to sleep, because they're very motherly.
And he was just bored.
He was bored. And then we'd get out in the car and he'd be like, telling me whatever he wanted to do. I'm like, I thought you were tired. And then finally he told me when he could talk more. I said, honestly, this happened for months. And then he's like, I don't want to sleep there. I'm like, do they make you sleep there? Yes. I'm like, okay. So, it just depends on, but they love him and he really loves them too. Now he would love to go over with them and watch a movie, but he doesn't want to go in their room and play with dolls, and that's okay. So it's creating the opportunities, figuring out what your child likes, also teaching them to be flexible, to play what other people want to play as well, because it can't be all about him.
And turn taking and all that stuff.
Yeah, so that's really what I have done with him. And again, Saturday just really warmed my heart because I literally could see the progress of how much better he's doing, especially when it's 3-on-1. When he's 1-on-1, listen, I do better with 1-on-1 than 3-on-1 when it comes to social activities. But another place that we've taken Bryce, and he has made friends there. I would say friends, but not friends like what you and I are probably thinking would be the special Java Cafe. And everybody that's there is in their 20s, right? I would say?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And Bryce is 8. So, but when he goes there, he feels like he's one of them.
Oh, yeah.
He's playing his instruments. They sing their songs.
They miss him when he's not there.
He has one that has really taken to him, and he writes him notes, and he gives him this pastime.
Burger King coupons.
Gave him Burger King. He gave him coupons and some loose change and another little note. Yeah. And it's just really sweet. I said, does he do this for everybody there? And
No.
Chris like, nope, just Bryce, And I will ask him, so do you have friends at Java Cafe? Yes. I said, what are your friends' names? And he has to really think. I mean, it does not just come off and then he'll be like, Matthew, what's the girl's name there? The owner's daughter.
If you hadn't asked me, I could have told you.
But he does know a couple of their names, and he'll tell me. Allie, there we go. And he'll tell me Allie. And then he remembers most is Mr. Elvis, the adult.
Yeah, he's the one that puts it all together.
Yeah, and I will say that Bryce is very drawn to adults, and I think...
Well, they're all adults.
That's true.
Yeah.
I guess I should say, like, he draws to people that are other adults as well, because I feel like adults know how to treat him maybe more so than
Mr. Elvis,
he
engages with all of them.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And like Auntie Sue, he definitely, like I said, considers her a friend. But I don't think he exactly still understands friends and strangers. And the reason why I say this is because a few weeks ago, we were getting out of our car at the taco place, and you weren't there, but there was a little girl who was probably 2 in the car next to us, and they opened their car door the same time we opened our car door, and she was in the back seat singing at the top of her lungs. So it caught Bryce's ear, caught my attention as well. And then Bryce, he goes, who is that? Who is that? And he really does like little girls. And so he came out and he saw her and he said, would you like to be friends with me? And she didn't really understand that because, again, she was like 2. But her mom, at the same time that I went, oh, like, that was so sweet. And then we started to walk off together, me and Bryce. And then he says, that was nice of me. I said, it was nice of you to ask her to be friends. He goes, and I asked her to be my friend, so now she's not a stranger anymore. And then I was like, okay, now we're going to have to work on that, because that's where Bryce's mind is. Like, okay, if I ask you to be my friend, you're no longer a stranger. So we got to work on that. And that's kind of where we're at on all of that. So I hope this has been helpful. And I hope that it, again, just kind of like we talked about with school. And I read that quote about taking your time and working at your own pace. Your child is probably going to be at their own pace with friendships as well. Just create the opportunities, nurture the friendships that have a spark. They're not all going to turn into flames, and that's okay. But some of them will, and I said for Bryce, my goodness, if I could have 1 or 2 friends that I know will be loyal to him for life, wouldn't we all like to have that? That's what I'd like to have for Bryce. I only have a couple of friends that are those true lifetime friends as well. That's just all we're working for with him. So I know we got to wrap up here. It's hard when we go for a month because I feel like we have so much to say. But I want to give a shout out to a review that was left, and then we can kind of wrap up from there. So we had a review saying, wonderful show. This show has been my comfort, my teacher, and my launch pad for finding solutions for my son on the spectrum. Not only is it uplifting to hear of the Coulter family's successes, it is also extremely therapeutic to know that we're not alone in our struggles. I love how real Chris and Sandy keep things, and the resources that are discussed, they are clear that they can only speak to their experience with Bryce and that not all solutions work for every child. But it's so awesome to even have some ideas to start researching in this often confusing and overwhelming journey. This podcast came into my life at the exact moment I needed it, and I couldn't be more grateful. So thank you, Miss Maggie, for that review. And I think that just really sums up why we do this. And
Yes.
she got it. And I'm grateful.
I just want to say, in this busy world that we live in, it really means a lot to us that you took 5 or 10 minutes to stop and review our show. I know how busy life is, and to stop and do something like that for us, we really, really, really appreciate that. And that's it. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Maggie.
Yes. Thank you. Is there anything else that you have on your list?
No.
No? Okay. Then 87's in the book.
Okay. Maybe we'll get Bryce on here next time.
Yeah, we'll get him on here next time.
We just had so much.
I'm sure he's got something to say.
I'm sure, and I'm sure we'll have more to say the next time. But we're going to wrap up here. It's nighttime on a weekday, but we wanted to get to you guys. So we hope you have a great week. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon.
See ya.
See ya.